Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be investigating who is the most iconic Disney Channel villain. I don't know whether it's a gay thing, but my favorite character is always the villain, so I'm gonna love doing this video. Before I get started, I'm gonna lay some groundwork because I think a lot of you will be watching this video going, you forgot about this person, this person, this person. I need to explain what a villain is. I am only going to be talking about characters whose primary purpose is to be a villain, whether they were incredibly villainous or whether they were just plain mean. That means I'm not going to be talking about anti-heroes or characters that have done bad things or said bad things, but at the end of the day, are they really a villain? That means I'm going to be excluding people like Pat from Smart House. She's not truly a villain, she just did some bad things. I'm also not going to talk about Mrs. Dabney from Good Luck Charlie. Is she a villain? No. On top of that, I'm also not going to be talking about villains that weren't actually villains. So this is not talking about the characters from the Descendants movies. Sure, their characters are meant to be villains, but were they villains? No. I'm also not going to be talking about that new show, The Villains of Valley View. They're not villains. They're anti-heroes. Also, before we get started, let's not talk about villains when you are a villain yourself. Turn off that ad block. Alright, let's get started. Starting off this list with Kalabar from Halloween Town. He was the mayor of Halloween Town. Kalabar's main objective was to overthrow the human race. And me thinks that this is a little bit petty. Because to me, his entire motivation is because he got rejected by Gwen when they were teenagers because she picked a mortal over him. And now you're wanting to become the mayor of Halloween Town to overthrow the human race. It seems a little extra. Like, get over it, babes. Get over it. Kill him with kindness. Let your success speak for itself. You're the mayor of a town. Like, that's success enough. Success wins at the end of the day. Moving on to Kate Sanders from Lizzie McGuire. She was ultimately the mean girl at Lizzie's school. She did not like Lizzie. She was the most popular girl in school and she would let you know about it. She was kind of a slay, but at the same time, she also gave off like Irma Gerd vibes. She sometimes thought she was eating, but then just like her delivery was a little like,
taking the chair off from underneath me, a little amateur. But I didn't do that. You must be confusing me with someone else.
Oh, okay. You're a little bit non-threatening for my liking. I also love her efforts to just consistently terrorize Lizzie wherever she goes. She's pretty much always finding a way to bump into Lizzie at school, even to the point that she went to Rome with Lizzie. I mean, did she really need to do that?
And they were roommates.
I get it, it was probably a compulsory obligation for her to go on that trip to Rome, but like, let's be real. You wanted to go there just to terrorize Lizzie, didn't you? I love a good mean girl. But when I look at Kate Sanders, I don't think 10s across the board, I think 5s across the board. Moving on to Alana from That's So Raven. She scared me. Adrienne Bailon did a very good job at playing Alana because I would be terrified of her if I went to the same school as Alana. She was a slay. Her outfits were killer, just like Raven's. I feel like that is where their main contention lies, is that they're both trying to be the most slay of the slays. I feel like it's a toss-up because Raven's outfits were killer, but then Alana came out with like the double denim look with the bandana. She was eating. Also, I just love the cliche of when the mean girl has like 2 backups behind her at all times. She had Muffy and Loka, and I have a soft spot for Loka. I love me some Loka. She had a crush on Eddie, and I wish they ended up together, to be honest. But then you're looking at it like, oh my gosh, they're this tight posse of 3 and they're intimidating and they're just walking around the school as a threesome. And then you're like, okay, but isn't Raven doing that with Chelsea and Eddie? It's like literally competition between them. Alana was one scary girl. I'd be scared of her. And she was running that school like a mob boss. She said, you know what time it is? It's 5:15. Payback.
Really? Mine only says 10 past.
Moving on to Dr. Drakken from Kim Possible. He was pretty much the main antagonist on Kim Possible. He kind of devoured in his look. I like the gel slick back hair. And he's kind of serving in that coat. He was giving androgyny when androgyny was not the norm. So he was a trailblazer. Ultimately, he had big aspirations to take over the world, yada yada yada. His missions for world domination or whatever were ultimately incompetent and he was unsuccessful. Kim Possible would always win out in the end of the day. However, if he did have a success, it wasn't because of him. It was because of Miss Mama next to him, Shego. Shego was a slay. And I know slay is overdone, but like when you look at Shego, how can you not say slay? Because she literally devoured. Her look was a slay, her attitude was a slay, she was filing her nails over her gloves. Her glowy hand powers were a slay, her gymnastic fighting abilities were a slay. She was the epitome of slay. She is the bar. Kim Possible was also a slay, but I feel like sometimes you would look at Shego Shego and go, I feel embarrassed just being me, like, she's making me look corny. Did anybody else, when they were watching Kim Possible, think, like, are Shego and Kim Possible somehow related? Like, at one point I thought that Shego was, like, Kim Possible's evil twin. They're, like, very similar looking. On top of that, Shego was, like, truly evil.
She has devilish ways.
She just wanted to cause chaos. She did not cower in the face of danger. Another thing to point out is that she was a mercenary for hire, basically. So, like, she wasn't truly Dr. Drakken's sidekick. It was basically a situation of Dr. Drakken having enough money to pay Shego to help him with his evil objectives, and she was like, I'll take the money with the sleigh. Moving on to Dr. Hämsterviel from the Lilo and Stitch series. So basically he is the main villain in Lilo and Stitch. You may be thinking, what about Gantu? No, he was the villain in the movie, and then he kind of just became the henchman in the series. He's the muscle. Dr. Hämsterviel was like, let me get on Zoom and tell you what you need to do today. So at the end of the day, Dr. Hämsterviel's objective was to rule the universe. Big aspirations for a little rabbit like Alien. He had major short man syndrome. He's kind of like a little dog that's all yappy and aggressive and thinks that they can get away with it because they're small and little and they're not going to get punished. Yeah. And Dr. Hämsterviel was goof because whenever he was in the face of danger, he would cower away like a little rabbit rodent that he was.
I always smell a rat.
Moving on to Gasper Le Gecko. So basically, he was a gecko. He's kind of like the mayor of the area of the Amazon that Brandy and Mr. Whiskers are in, and he just wants to eat that damn rabbit.
Bon appetit!
He is pretty sinister, but then there was also some episodes where he did help out Brandy and Mr. Whiskers when it was serving to him as well. So, in my opinion, that's not iconic. Moving on to the Hunstman from American Dragon, Jake Long. This guy was evil. Not because he wants to kill these cute dragons and all, but literally because he kidnapped a baby. So his daughter Rose is also helping him with the Hunts clan, and then we find out that Rose was stolen from her biological parents by the Hunts clan, and then when she finds out, what does the Huntsman do? He goes, I will your parents if you disobey me. He's evil, 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 but also pretty iconic. Moving on to Lola from the Cheetah Girls. She was the mum of Marisol. She's a momager, just like Kris Jenner.
Kris Jenner, aka that woman, aka the devil.
She wanted her daughter Marisol to win the singing competition that they entered into, and the Cheetah Girls were in her way. So she wants to split up the Cheetah Girls. She goes to Marisol and says, spend some time with Chanel, distract her, split up the Cheetah Girls. And I'm thinking in my head, okay, like, villainous, but at the same time the Cheetah Girls kind of did that to themselves, right? Because Chanel at any time could have been like, no, I need to practice with my cheetahs, but she didn't. The one thing that is against her though is that the Cheetah Girls did a performance at this club, and then Lola,
that woman, that mother,
was like, pay the girls money for doing this performance at the club, and the Cheetah Girls are like, money, 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 money. But then they don't realize is that in order to be in the singing competition at the end of the film, they have to be amateurs, and if they get paid, now they're considered professionals. So Lola kind of slayed. Now I'm questioning, the Cheetah Girls have been together for a while. Are you telling me that they have never been paid for a single performance? Because in the first movie, they're wanting to get a damn record deal. If it wasn't for Galleria not wanting to be a sellout. And then, in the beginning of the second film, they're doing a performance for like the graduating class or whatever. I mean, potentially they weren't paid for the performance at the beginning because it's like a graduation. And you know, a school's not going to pay their students to perform at their graduation. So that may make sense, but are you seriously telling me that every single performance that the Cheetah Girls have done, they have not been paid for it? That's crazy. Moving on to Sharpay Evans from the High School Musical series. Now, obviously, let's be legit. I think we all had a phase where we were like, Sharpay was not the real villain of that movie. I get the reasoning because ultimately all Sharpay wanted was her dreams to come true. She's driven and motivated, and that's really it. And we're just meant to hate her because she's a theater kid that craves the spotlight. However, we are neglecting the fact that she did some villainous things and that she is definitely the villain of the first movie, especially. She found a way to get the musical callback at the same time as Gabriella's nerdy thing and Troy's basketball thing, so she was actively trying to sabotage other people from getting casted in the musical.
At the same time.
That is being a villain, right? And obviously in the second movie, Sharpay was using her connections to help Troy get recruited into a college basketball team and helping him out, but it was self-serving, right? Sharpay was being a little instigator, she was being a little evil. I can't remember his name, but she kept on telling that guy to like get them to do busy work and keep them away from Troy and stuff. She's a villain.
Do you want us to lose the Star Dazzle award to a bunch of dishwashers?
But she is iconic. Outfits, slay. Personality, slay. Attitude, slay. Lifestyle, slay. Talent, slay. Sharpay is a slay. The whole musical sequence of Fabulous in the second movie just epitomizes Sharpay's iconicness, right? Another funny thing is they don't really explain it well, but is she the most popular girl in school, or is she that nerdy theater kid that no one likes? Because why is she in the cafeteria going, "Everybody quiet!" So they kind of do look up to her as like the popular mean girl, but then at the same time, are they just all looking up at her going, what is the theater kid up to right now? The villain is so iconic that she got her own spin-off, Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure. I didn't see Gabriella's Fabulous Adventure in Stanford early entrance. No one wants to see that film. Moving to Tess Tyler from the Camp Rock movies, she was the HBIC at Camp Rock in the first film. She was the whole one that's like, I've got rich parents that are connected to the industry and all of you should bow down to me. I'm the star. I'm going to do a performance. They paint it out like, oh, what a narcissist doing a performance. Is that not what the whole camp is about? Being a narcissist and wanting the spotlight? But obviously there is parts of her where she is cold and frigid and mean. And then in the second film, she goes to Camp Star, where she gives the performance of her life at the final jam. The looks, we got him. The moves, we got him. She was stiff. She did not have the moves. She lied about that. But she was a good, mean girl. But talk about the real villain of Camp Rock, Mitchie Torres. This girl was ungrateful. Imagine having your dream be going to Camp Rock, and your parents are like, I can't really afford that. Connie Torres, Mitchie's mum, is like, I'm going to pick up a job as the chef for the camp in order to pay for you to go and have your dreams come true. And what does Mitchie do? I'm going to pretend that I don't know you. I'm going to insult you behind your back to my friends so I can fit in. I'm not going to have a backbone. I'm going to lie that my mum is somebody else. I'm going to put you in the trenches. You have no consideration for your parents and appreciate them for what they do and sacrifice for you. You're a villain. But she did have the pipes. Moving on to Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz from the Phineas and Ferb series. His main mission is that he wants to take over the tri-state area, which I think is super funny because every other villain that I'm talking about wants to take over the world, wants to take over the universe, the galaxy, yada yada. He's being a bit more realistic. He just wants to take over the tri-state area. He is reasonable. But then is he really villainous? No, he's Mr. Doofenshmirtz. He has self-destruct buttons on all of his inventions and all of his machines because at the end of the day, he knows that Perry the Platypus has come into slay and he's going to fail at his attempt.
This right here is ridiculous. I mean, he is just a mess.
But obviously, Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated, it's in the name, he is evil, he wants power, and he's going to do it in the most goofy way. He's incredibly funny, he contributed a lot to the show, and I also talked about him in my Disney Channel Dad video saying that he had a good relationship with his daughter, Vanessa. Moving to Yzma from the Emperor's New School, she carried over from being the villain in the Emperor's New Groove. She is camp level max. She's telling Kronk to pull the lever, and it's always the wrong lever.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
She is the perfect balance of evil and camp, which is what you want in a villain. I love looking at a villain and going, I'm rooting for you. You ate.
Why do we even have that lever?
Moving to Amber and Ashley from Hannah Montana, they're the two mean girls. They have the iconic ooh, and that's really it. But I thought I'd mention them. Gigi from Wizards of Waverly Place, she is the resident mean girl at the Russo's school. She has been a mean girl for life because we find out that when both Gigi and Alex were in kindergarten, Gigi spilled juice on Alex's mat and then went around the whole class and told everybody that Alex peed her pants. She is evil. She has two minions as well, and what I love is that the minions got nose jobs to look more like Gigi. That is iconic. One thing that has always stuck with me is Harper says something where she goes, when you spell Gigi backwards, it's the same. And I remember thinking, is that not Igig? But then I realized maybe her name is GG, just the initials, because then when you put that backwards, it's just GG.
Gigi, you're not the doll. You're the Cabbage Patch. She's the Barbie.
I want to give an honorable mention to Dr. Evilini, because this was Major Slay energy from Octavia Spencer. She was giving 10 out of 10 camp.
Ooh, that sounded mysterious.
She was a professor at WizTech, which was basically like the Hogwarts equivalent in the Wizards of Waverly Place universe. And from the get-go, she's like, I'm Dr. Evilini, and they're like, that's suspicious. She basically wants to steal Justin's powers. And the way that she is found out is because she has to reveal her evil plan.
Now go, messenger fish. Flop like the wind.
Ow, ow, ow.
And then she's ousted, which is kind of like, really girl? But then it's like, what else would you expect from a camp villain? She was amazing. Moving on to the Nepo baby villain, Dakota Condor from Sunny with a Chance. So she was played by Gigi very well. She was the daughter of Mr. Condor, who owned Condor Studios, where So Random was filmed. So Dakota was this very entitled brat, where she gets everything that she wants because she is the daughter of Mr. Condor. And all of the other characters in the show are employees of Mr. Condor, so they really have to do everything that she wants. And she's going to be evil doing it. She was a great recurring character. Gigi played her very maniacally. Moving on to Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls. He's shaped like the elevator up button. I loved all of the Easter eggs where they hinted at Bill's entrance to the show. He was in the theme song, he was in the A in the Mystery Shack logo, he was featured in some of the glass windows. Bill Cipher also made cameos in other shows like Amphibia and The Simpsons. That is icon status. So Bill Cipher is older than the universe himself. He is a demon from another dimension, and then he basically tricks Stanford into creating a dimension portal in order for him to... I need to stop talking with my hands. Okay. So he tricked Stanford into creating a dimension portal for him to enter into Gravity Falls to cause chaos, and he did. And he attacks the Gravity Falls town.
John Collins.
Can I help you?
Did you just attack my village?
Moving on to Lord Dominator from Wander Over Yonder. Lord Dominator is more threatening of a villain than Lord Hater. What I like about this character is that her personality does not match her characterization, right? At first you see her more like a Darth Vader character behind the mask, and it's very stern and scary, and then when the mask comes off, she's like quirky. Lord Dominator's mission is to shrivel up all of the planets, just because she likes to watch them shrivel up. And she has some success in doing this, so... good for you, Lord Dominator. Moving on to Ludo from Star vs. the Forces of Evil. He had short man syndrome. He was very childish. He's once again one of those villains that when he is actually facing danger, he cowers. His main motivation is that he wants Star's wand in order to help take over the universe. But then, Ludo is manipulated by another villain in the show, Toffee. So Toffee ends up overthrowing Ludo as the main villain of the show. He's kind of running the show like a mob boss. He has an organized crime setup. When he kidnaps a character, needs to interrogate them, he's like, do you want a sandwich? He is a mob boss. Now talking about the cultural appropriating villain in DuckTales, Glomglod. So Glomglod is greedy chops. Glomglod is also very unhinged and very competitive with Scrooge, but the most villainous thing that he ever does is culturally appropriate Scottish culture because his Scottish accent is not real, and he wears a fake beard and Scottish costume in order to appropriate the Scottish culture, which... Moving on to Zhan Tiri from Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. Zhan Tiri is a sorceress that wants the sun drop and moonstones in order to have more power. She ends up being trapped in a magical tree, but then still from the tree tries to destroy the kingdom of Corona and somewhat succeeds. And she also is a manipulative queen. She manipulates other characters like Cassandra that are an anti-hero in this show. And she manipulates Cassandra into freeing her, and then she gets to destroy some of the kingdom of Corona and a whole army. She was a slay. Okay, this is super unprofessional, but I forgot to talk about Uma in my videos, so I need to do it now while I'm editing. So Uma is the villain in Descendants because she is the antagonist against the villains in Descendants too, do you know what I mean? And I'm not going to be talking about the son of Gaston and Captain Hook because they were henchmen. So she was a little bit jelly of people like Mel who got to go to Auradon and she was stuck in the Isle of Lost with the other flop villains, and she was like, what's my name? And then she got into some tomfoolery. She got into like an arm wrestling match with Mel, and then she's like, I want the fairy godmother's wand, and Mel's like, oh my god, like, why though? And I'm doing such a good retelling of this movie. She kidnaps Ben and then puts a love potion on him, but then Mel breaks the love potion because she kisses him. So Uma was like, and jumped into the ocean.
I want you to get me wet. Did I ask you to get me wet? No!
And turned into a humongous octopus and got everyone wet. Mel turned into a dragon, and then the flop jumps into the ocean. He's like, stop the fighting, stop the violence. And then they kind of stop the violence. Yeah. But Uma was a slave because China Anne McClain has pipes. She knows how to sing. So Uma was definitely a slave. Finally, I'm going to be talking about Leviathan from Amphibia. So Leviathan is like the king of Amphibia, and when Anne comes to Amphibia, she's like, I want to go home to the human world. And Leviathan's like, I can help you do that. He's like Disney dad level goofy. He's cute and quirky, and it's like, oh my god, he's such a benevolent king. But plot twist. he's a liar, and he actually wants to rule the Earth, and he is only cooperating with Anne in order for him to go to Earth so he can rule it. Evil, 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 evil. So that is all of the villains on Disney Channel that I'm going to be talking about. As I mentioned in the beginning, there is a lot of others. I can't talk about every single villain. I'm only talking about the very prominent ones. And going through all of these villains, I've come to a decision. The most iconic villain on Disney Channel is Shego, filing nails over gloves queen. Not only is she truly villainous, her main life goal is to be a villain, she's also competent, she has the physical capabilities, she has powers, she has the attitude, she has the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent that a lot of these villains do not have. She is the most iconic villain on Disney Channel. We all know Shego, we all love Shego, a lot of us are attracted to Shego, but tell me, what do you guys think? Who do you think is the most iconic villain on Disney Channel? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content from me. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.
That sounded mysterious.